So you decided you wanted to get into reloading. You watched my previous videos, or maybe if you didn't, go back and watch those. You've got yourself a press, you've got a sets of dies for whatever calibers you're loading, you have all the other essential supplies, and now you're wondering, what's next? Well, the first step after you have everything compiled, all your components ready, is to begin the depriming and resizing operation. Now, when you first open a set of dies, like this Lee 38 Special set here, it may look a little bit baffling. Pop the lid off, and you got all this stuff sitting here. Well, what is it? We'll get into the purpose of the different dies in a moment here, but the two important things we need to focus on now are going to be the shell holder, which is this little piece of metal down here with this little C-shape cut in it, and this die over here that's got a pin sticking out at the end. This is your depriming and resizing die, and we're going to focus on this next. We'll begin with the shell holder. The shell holder in the Lee set is located underneath the powder dipper, is what allows you to interface the base of the cartridge, which varies by cartridge of course, to the press ram itself. In this case, this one's designed for 38 Special, 37 Magnum. You can see there, it slides in perfectly. So we're going to take this on most presses, single stage presses, turret presses, the exception being progressives, but we'll not address that for now. It goes into a little notch on the top of the ram here. Simply line that up and push back. There's a little spring retaining ring in there, and that holds it in place. Adjust the angle to suit you, and that part's done. Set this case to the side here. And then I'll pick up our resizing die. Now, the purpose of the resizing die is to properly size down the outside of the brass case. Why do we need to do that, you might ask? Well, when you fire, the pressure generated by the powder inside this cartridge as it burns forces this thin piece of brass, which is the cartridge case, out into the chamber of your firearm. This serves two purposes. The main purpose is to seal off any of that hot gas from passing around the outside of this piece of brass here and coming back into the action of the gun or towards your face. So the primary purpose is to act as a seal. Second to that, this case also has to be at a proper size in order to grip the bullet when the bullet sits in here. When you fire and that case expands, it doesn't completely contract back down to its original size, so we need to resize it in order for it to hold a projectile in here again. Most resizing dies, at least in the case of pistol dies, will utilize a carbide ring inside the bottom of the die. You can easily tell here, make sure this is showing up clear on camera. Yep. You can see there that carbide ring is what does the sizing operation on this case. It will properly shrink it down, and this pin, which sticks out right here, will knock out the old primer, which is in the base of the case. So, how do we get that set up? Most resizing dies are set up the same way. There are some exceptions, but by and large, most of the ones from many of the main brands on the market will get set up this way. You start by threading the lock ring most of the way towards the top of the die. In this case, this one has a rubber O-ring, so I'm just going to push that into a little groove there. Most of the Lee dies utilize this. And we're going to thread it into the top of our press. Just get it started so you know it's straight. And then you're going to take the press handle and lower that all the way down, bringing the ram to its topmost position. From this point, we thread this die down, just keep threading it down until it bottoms out against this shell holder right here. All right, so right there it bottomed out. Now, this is the part you need to be careful. With a carbide sizing die like this, if that carbide is exposed beneath the bottom of the die, if you tighten this down any further, you risk cracking that. This one is slightly recessed up in, so I have a little bit of leeway here. I'm going to lower that ram and tighten this die maybe 1/8 of a turn and press down on the ram. I want just a little bit of resistance, knowing that it's taking the slop out of the linkage on the sizing operation. With the handle being held down and that ram all the way up to the top, locking this die in place, I want to thread this lock ring down, like so. And these, you don't need to use a wrench on these when they have that rubber O-ring. You just want down so it's nice and finger tight, which in this case, this one is. You feel that slight resistance, and we are now set up for sizing. Prior to the start of the sizing operation, you have to ask yourself, am I going to use case lube or am I not going to use case lube on these cases? Baseline is to go off of the manufacturer's recommendations at the very least. In this case, Lee says with these that because they have the carbide ring in them, you do not need to use case lube. That being said, you still can, and it will make an easier sizing operation. I have laid out here a couple different options as far as case lube, should you choose to use it. On the left here, we have a homemade mixture of 12 ounces ISO-HEET, which is 99-point-something% isopropyl alcohol, to 1 ounce liquid lanolin. To use this, all you have to do is just take some of the cases, lay them in a dish or whatever you prefer. I like to shake it, make sure it's well mixed up in there. Occasionally it'll separate, but usually it stays together pretty well. You just take this and spritz it over the cases. You don't need a ton. Actually, that was probably a decent bit too much, but it won't hurt anything. Now those will need to sit for a little bit while the isopropyl alcohol flashes off, leaving just that liquid lanolin behind. It makes it easier to spray. The other option, and this is more popular in rifle case sizing, is going to be this Imperial Sizing Die Wax. Pardon the noisy truck that just drove by. This is by far the best sizing lube I have found as far as least amount of resistance in the actual sizing operation. A little bit goes a long way. You can see here this tin I have used out of for the better part of a year, and there's barely a divot here in the center. To use this, fairly straightforward. Just set that down there. Wipe 1 or 2 fingers over it. That little bit I have in my fingers there is more than enough. It's actually a little bit too much. And you just want to wipe it over the cases. This wipes up super easy with like a microfiber towel after you're done, and provides excellent increase in sizing lubricity. For the sake of saving space, I'm going to close that. Set that behind those. Those are ready to resize. Also, microfiber towel does a great job cleaning off your fingers. The last way, and this is a little bit faster if you have bulk cases to do and you don't want to use the lanolin method, is to use a case lube sizing pad. I often use this when I'm doing rifle cases, as it's significantly quicker than the Imperial if I'm doing just like bulk plinking or if I have a lot of cases to go through. To use this, simply pop the cover off of the sizing lube pad there. You see it's just like a white foam pad inside, and apply a little bit. I know RCBS makes this. I believe Hornady makes this, like an equivalent. This happens to be just the Imperial or Redding's version. Petroleum-free, biodegradable, so works fine outside, whatever. Just take this, apply a couple drops of this to your case lube pad there. Just set that back on the end, and then just rub this around. It has a darker color, and just work that into the foam. Again, this is non-toxic, biodegradable, environmentally friendly, all that. You don't have to worry about getting it on your skin, which is definitely a nice part. Obviously, just wipe off your fingers when you're done. To use this, I'll just take 5 cases here out of this block of once fired cases, lay them on top, and you simply just roll them around a little bit, and that'll coat the outsides. Once you've determined which case lubrication method is best for you, or if you're choosing not to lubricate them, whichever you want to do, the next step is to simply grab a case. You can see here it is lubed. I prefer to do that in most cases. Again, with carbide, you usually don't have to. You'll note here the primer is still in the base of the case. We need to get rid of that in order to install a new one when reloading this round. Simply slide it in to the notch on the shell holder there, grab your handle, and raise this ram. You'll feel a little bit of resistance as the case enters the die. Keep pressing. It'll feel like it bottoms out a little bit. That's simply your depriming pin touched that primer. Press through that, bottom it out, and then bring the handle back up. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it shrunk down the outside of that case, and it knocked out, try to get that, there we go. It knocked out the old primer, so this case is now ready to go on to the next step of reloading. With the first case sized, it's time to move on to the rest of them that we've done here with the different lubrication methods. I'll start with the Imperial Biogreen and the sizing pad. Also note, I've got a couple empty little acro bins here to catch the rounds or the cases as they're resized. Again, bottoms out. There we go. If you look at that one, resized and primer knocked out. Second one. Now, one trick I have learned, and I'll edit in a clip here of my friend doing this at a much faster speed than I do.
I found that the stroke can almost kind of be run automatically. You focus more on getting the brass.
Yep, and and manipulating the pull one out, stick another one in, I think you've got down pretty well. Set the cartridge onto the shell holder here. Simultaneously reach over, grab another case, and have that ready. You resize and deprime this one, and then grab the cases on there between these two fingers. Again, you don't have to do this. It's just a little technique that I found. Slide that one in. Saves a little bit of time. See, there was 5 of them in short order. Now time to move on to the ones that were done with the Imperial Sizing Wax. Grab the first one from there. And because this is 38 special, we're not sizing these cases down a ton. It's not like these are fired in a high pressure magnum like a 357 Magnum or something like that. So really any of these case lube methods are about equal in terms of performance. I can't say, at least between these two, there isn't much of a noticeable difference. Reach over here, grab some of these that we did with the lanolin mixture. Yeah, again, this feels just about the same. Grab them one at a time so I'm not blocking you guys' view. And that's that. I think for the rest of these, just to save on some time, I'll use the lanolin method. Let's get those poured over in a bin, misted, get them to dry, and then we'll go through those. If you're resizing any kind of bulk quantities of brass, the lanolin method really is the quickest. Shown here, I deprime and resize approximately 85 pieces of 38 special brass. And that's all there is to depriming and resizing cases. It's honestly a fairly straightforward operation, and once you get the hang of it and get your die set up, the rest is just chugging through those cases and getting them done. A couple things once you have your cases resized and deprimed. I highly recommend, especially if you're reloading anywhere that's humid, or if you're touching your dies a lot and you have a tendency to make dies rust, which I do. But anyway, I highly recommend cleaning and oiling both any parts of the press you touch that can rust, as well as the shell holder, and cleaning out this die. If you want more information on how to do that, I'd highly recommend checking out this video right here, in which I cover in less than 60 seconds as a YouTube short how to clean your sizing dies after you're done using them. The other thing worth noting, especially if you're running a single stage press like this that uses a primer catch tube. I know some of the RCBS models and the early Reddings use a little catch bin on the side, which is fine. Just make sure to empty those. If you're using a press that has a tube like this one, drop down here, and you can kind of see it sticking right here off the bottom of the press. This tube captures all the spent primers after you're done. In the case of this Redding, I'll tap it down there. There's a little metal cap. Just pull that cap off, dump your primers out somewhere, whether you take them to recycling, scrapyard, or trash them, whatever you do. Just make sure to empty them before this gets up into here and jams up the ram on your press. Also worth noting that after your brass has been sized like this and has all this case lubricant on it, and or revolver brass doesn't necessarily have this issue if you're not dropping it on the ground, but definitely auto pistol brass and stuff is going to be dirty, pick up debris. Highly recommend cleaning that. Like I said in the intro video, there's a bunch of different methods for cleaning your brass. You can ultrasonic clean it. You can wet or dry tumble it. When I first started out, I would just take the pieces of brass with a rag, wipe them down. If they're really tarnished, you can chuck them in a drill with a proper attachment. Of course, don't just chuck the drill on it. And then use just a piece of like triple-aught steel wool or a brass polishing cloth if you really want to get detailed with keeping them clean. Two main things to make sure they're clean on the outside, so you're not abrading up your firearms chamber and stuff, as well as the primer pocket. If there's a bunch of debris in here, it may make it hard to reseat new primers, or if you have gunk in that little flash hole there, you may have issues. Is it likely? No, but just another step to make sure it's clean and get the most reliability out of your hand loads. Other than that, that's about all there is to the sizing operation. Stay tuned for the next video. We'll be covering case mouth expansion in preparation for seating that bullet, as well as powder charging. That should be all that I have for you guys today. If you have any questions on this video or anything you want me to address in future videos, feel free to leave them down in the comments section down below. As always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and click the little bell notification on the side so you don't miss any of our future videos. As always, stay safe and keep on reloading.